All right, this page in our notebook, we will be looking at all 8 phases of the moon. So you need to make sure this page is glued in your journal, and you need to make sure that phases of the moon is recorded in your table of contents with the page number you have it on. Now there are 8 phases of the moon. We have them listed all here. Now, the first phase of our moon is the first phase of our lunar cycle, and it is called new moon. Now, it is called a new moon because it is starting a new moon cycle, a new lunar cycle. What's interesting about the new moon is that you cannot see the moon during a new moon phase, and it's the first phase of the lunar cycle. Now, when we are looking at a new moon, the moon is between Earth and the sun, and from Earth we are looking at the shadow side of the moon. So as we talk about each one of these, we're going to shade our moon the correct way so that our moon image is representative of what we would actually see if we were looking at that phase from Earth. So the new moon is when we cannot see the moon. So we want to shade this entire moon in, because a new moon phase is always in complete shadow. So we're going to shade in this whole moon. In a new moon phase, we cannot see any light. It is completely shaded in. We can, if we were able to see the moon, it would be in complete shadow. So why can't we see the moon? Because it's super dark and it is all shadow. Now, we're going to add a note right here. We're going to say it's also called no moon phase. Why would no moon be another good name for a new moon phase? Well, during a new moon, if we look in the sky, do we see a moon? No, we see no moon because it is completely shaded. All right, now our next phase is a waxing crescent moon. Now there's a couple things we want to unpack here. This word, waxing, is always going to tell us what side of the moon has light on it. If we look back one page at waxing, and we look at our cheat code for waxing, it says light on the right equals waxing. So when we are looking at a waxing crescent moon, we can see a sliver of the right side of the moon, and that sliver is shaped like a fingernail. It can also, and I'll show you, so a crescent shape will be shaped like a fingernail, right? So if I draw that, it looks like I clipped off a piece of my fingernail and left it on the paper. We can also say a crescent shape looks like a banana, or if you like to snack, a crescent shape is the same as a croissant. Croissants are delicious. If you had one, it's a type of biscuit that has this very specific croissant shape, almost like a C or a banana. This croissant shape is a crescent shape. So when we are looking at a waxing crescent moon, we're going to see this shape, this crescent fingernail banana shape, on the right side of the moon. So to draw that, we're going to come over here. If we have a crescent shape of light on the right side, so our light is on the right because we're in waxing, then the entire left side of the moon is going to be in shadow. So we'll shade our moon in. All right, and now we have a waxing crescent moon because it's waxing because our light is on the right side of the moon, and it's a crescent because our light is forming a crescent shape that is shaped like a fingernail or like a banana or like a croissant. And as we move down, every time we move into a new phase, we are going to be adding a little bit of light for this first half, for all of our waxing phases. Because remember, waxing phases are when light is increasing on the right side. So we have absolutely no light in our first phase. In our next phase, we've increased to a little bit of light on the right side. So now we're going to have to increase again to a first quarter moon. The first quarter moon is when you can see the right half of the moon. A quarter moon is always going to occur when the sun, earth, and moon form a right angle. But the important thing to remember is that a first quarter moon, we can see the right half. So we need to separate, we need to divide our moon in half. What half should be in light if we're in our waxing phases? The light on the right equals waxing. This is a waxing phase, so light on the right, which means we shade the left. Feel free to pause the video if I'm moving too fast and you need some time to catch up for these drawings. You can pause it and play it as you need. All right, moving along. So we have no light, increased to a little bit, increased to half. Now we're going to increase again to a waxing gibbous. A waxing gibbous moon is when the right side of the moon is almost fully lit, and the gibbous always comes just before or just after a full moon. Now this gibbous is an interesting shape, and it's probably new to you. We know that this is a whole circle, and we know that this,
Harmony Smith, you're checking out. Harmony Smith, you're checking out.
All right, so we know that this is a whole circle. This is a half circle, right? No new information yet. Whole circle, half circle. A gibbous is in between these two. So a gibbous is more than a half, but not quite a full. So a gibbous shape is going to be kind of like a half circle plus a little extra. So it's important to recognize this shape as, if we kind of make that a half. I can draw that better. Sorry, bear with me one moment. Here, that would be our half, and we're going to add a little extra. So can you see how this is an entire circle? This is the whole thing. This is a half circle, but this one is a gibbous shape. And a gibbous shape is almost like a lopsided circle, or we can say it's a little more than a half, or a little less than a whole circle, or we could just say it's basically 1/2 of a circle, right? 1/2 plus a little bump. And the reason it's so important, the reason why I'm spending so much time explaining to you what a gibbous moon is because to draw it, we need to draw it's in a waxing, so our light is going to be on the right, and our moon needs to make a shape that is more than half, but not a whole circle. So what we do is we make this little curve over here on the left side. We shade to the left of that line, and now we have what's called a waxing gibbous moon. It's waxing because our light is on the right, and it's a gibbous shape because it's a little more than a half circle, so we can see our half circle, and this one's a little more, but it's a little less than a whole circle. We shaded it out on the left to make it a little less than a whole circle. So this is a waxing gibbous moon. Light is on the right, make it waxing, and it is gibbous, which means it's more than a half circle, but less than a whole circle. And let's move down to a full moon. Now, on a full moon, the entire moon is visible, and Earth is between the sun and the moon. For a full moon, when you look up at a full moon, how much of the moon can you see? You can see all of it because it is full of what? It is full of light. So for our full moon phase, we don't have to shade anything. This is exactly how a full moon phase looks. Just one big bright circle. All right, before we move down, I want to focus on something right here. Let's draw a bracket around phase 2, 3, and 4. These three phases we're going to label as our, hold on.
Asher Hartford, you're checking out, and you're actually checking out. Asher Hartford, you're checking out.
All right, so we have our 3 moon phases here. These are we're going to label these as our waxing phases. Okay, so waxing phases because light is on what side, the right or the left? It's on the right. And when we have light on the right, that is a waxing phase, and it means our light is increasing. And we can see that because we have absolutely no light here in a new moon. Then we increase to a little bit of light on the right side. We increase again to half of the right side in light. We increase again to most of the right side is in light. And then we increase one more time until the entire moon is in light. And now we go the opposite direction. So after a full moon, we go into our waning phases. So if we label these 3 as waxing phases because they're increasing light with light on the right, then we will label these 3 as waning phases. These 3 are waning phases because our light will be on the left side of the moon and our light will be shrinking or appearing to shrink. So let's start here. A waning gibbous moon is when the left side of the moon is almost fully lit. It's going to be similar to this shape. This is our waxing gibbous, right? Our waning gibbous is going to be almost the same, except we have to flip. We have to flip this image of a waxing gibbous to get our light on the left side for a waning gibbous. So a waxing gibbous is light on the right with a little shadow on the left. A waning gibbous, we're just going to flip it. So we're going to draw like this. And for the waning gibbous, our light is on the left, so we need to shade the right. Okay. And as we move down, we're going to be decreasing our light a little bit more. So here on the 3rd quarter moon, similar to our 1st quarter moon, the 3rd quarter moon, also called last quarter moon, is when the left half of the moon, is when we can see the left half of the moon. So on this 3rd quarter moon, the left half is going to be in light. And that is the exact opposite of our first quarter moon. On our first quarter moon, the right half is in light, the left half is in shadow. We're going to reverse it for our third quarter moon. For the third quarter moon, our left side is in light and our right side is in shadow. And then we're going to come down to phase 8, the last phase of our lunar cycle. A waning crescent moon is when we can see a sliver of the left side of the moon. And a sliver, right, this crescent shape is going to be similar to what we have up here, right? That's our crescent shape for a waxing phase. So we need to recreate this waxing crescent, but we need to move it to the left side for our waning crescent. So our waning crescent is going to be the opposite of a waxing crescent. So waxing crescent has a crescent shape of light on the right side. A waning crescent has a crescent shape of light on the left side. So we need a sliver of light on the left, and we need to shade the right. So we have now completed all 8 phases of our moon, all 8 phases of our lunar cycle. But my question to you is, what happens when we start at our new moon phase, go to waxing crescent, then to first quarter, then to waxing gibbous, all the way up to a full moon? Now we're decreasing light. We lose a little light to go to a waning gibbous. We lose a little light down to a third quarter. We lose a little light down to a waning crescent. But what happens after a waning crescent? This right here happens. After a waning crescent, then the cycle starts over as a new moon begins the next lunar cycle. So what happens is the moon goes through all 8 of these phases. When it reaches the end, it starts the whole thing back over and goes through our lunar cycle again. What happens when it reaches the end? Goes back to the top, goes through all 8 phases, and continues doing this cycle. It is going to continue this lunar cycle. Every time it completes the cycle, starts back over. Completes it again and starts back over. All right? That is the information for your phases of the moon page. Make sure these are illustrated clearly. Make sure we have our labels, and make sure we have everything highlighted as I do in here. All right.